Hey, how's it going, folks? Welcome to the Coach's Corner, live here at Benchwarmers Restaurant and Delivery. We got a packed house here, actually a packed patio here. As joining me this week, special guest, head coach of the Tiffin Columbian Tornadoes, Judd Lutz. How we doing, Coach?
Doing great. Thanks for the opportunity as always.
Yeah, absolutely. And joining us this week, Eric Hall, the sideline reporter for us on Friday nights for Heart of Ohio Sports. How's it going, Eric?
Going good, man.
Nice. All right, Coach. We got to talk. We got to talk some football, man, because what an exciting week one of action. But before we talk week one, let's talk about your offseason program a little bit. I mean, we're still just a week removed from the offseason. You had a lot of preparation to get ready for this season. Any areas of emphasis in the offseason?
Huge areas of emphasis all the time are strength and speed. Coach Joe Stacy does a great job writing the program, creating the program in a lot of ways, and then tweaking it per athlete and per year. So we do a great amount of speed training really year-round and strength training as well. You know, we're not just about getting bigger and getting stronger. Obviously, we want to in many areas, but becoming better athletes and moving in space and doing things in space. And he does a great job, creating those things. And like I said, modifying them per athlete and then year to year always tweaking. He's always growing and always getting better.
Absolutely. And he's put together a great program over the years. Talk about your leaders this year. Now, obviously, you've got a strong senior class, but where's the leadership coming from this year?
We really try to make an emphasis on having, unit leaders within each position group. And so, we obviously have our captains, and those 5 guys that we're going to lean on consistently, and those guys are definitely unit leaders within their positions. But, there's a couple positions that aren't represented necessarily with a captain, or maybe there is a captain, but there's also a returning starter, senior-wise. For example, at linebacker, we have 2 returning starters, A.J. Bonnell and Talib Al-Zakwani, and, A.J. is one of our elected captains, but Talib isn't. What does that mean? Talib's not allowed to talk and not allowed to lead? Heck no. He's absolutely a unit leader, and I told him that last week along with A.J. and be vocal and put guys in the right spot. And then oftentimes, kind of due to injury or not playing, some guys got to step up, even though they're not necessarily, have that title next to their name doesn't mean that they can't be a leader in a lot of ways. And so we talk about that up and down all the time. We kicked it off when we were at team camp at Mount Union, and there's 3 areas of leadership. There's coaches being the leaders, there's players being the leaders, and then there's self-leadership. And we need all 3 in balance at different times. And so we constantly reiterate that and revisit those ideas, clear back from team camp then. And so far the guys are doing a pretty good job.
Let's talk about that team camp just a little bit. That trip to Mount Union, that's something that you guys just started this year, correct?
No, we've done it off and on since 2017. I think we went the first year in 2017, went again in 18. Did not go in 20 because of things. Yeah. And then we've been back every other year since then, I believe. So
nice.
It's a great opportunity to get off our campus and onto a different campus and get comfortable being uncomfortable, and it's a great time, for camaraderie, and you get a whole lot of football done in 3 days, but you also grow together in a lot of ways as a team, and even as coaching staff with the team too. So we love it, and obviously we invest in it, not only our time but our money as well.
I'm sure the kids love getting out and seeing a college campus and being able to practice or get out there and practice.
Yeah,
for them.
And I'm familiar to the facilities. I'm a graduate of Mount Union, and that's where we've gone for a couple of years. I love Coach Donaldson, and I love Heidelberg as well. But, there's something about getting out of town, and removing some distractions in a lot of ways and stuff. And, Mount Union, in my opinion, is the class of Division III football in a lot of ways. They got the trophies to prove it. And then, look around the facilities, they got that to prove it too. So, it's where I met my wife too. So she really likes it and gives it the blessing when I go every year. So we take advantage of it.
That's awesome. So talk about your time at Mount, because there might be some listeners out there who might not be familiar. Eric, you had a question for him about his time at Mount Union.
Yeah, there was I was just going to talk about how it felt to go from Mount Union and be able to come back to Columbian and be able to coach for your alma mater and all the great traditions we've got here. That was just kind of one of the questions I reached out and asked people what they might want to know about you, and that's one of the questions that was asked. So just kind of how it felt when you got that call back in, 2016 now you got hired?
Yeah.
And kind of how that felt to be able to come back and coach here.
Well, first off, graduating from here and then going off to college at a place like Mount Union, and 4 great years. accomplished a whole lot, individually, collectively with teams in 2 sports. I was a 2-sport college athlete at track and field and also football. And
that discus.
It was awesome. It was a great experience. Met a whole lot of great people, was tutored and coached and led by a whole lot of great people. And had the opportunity when I graduated there with a teaching degree. Got a job right away at a high school on the west side of Cleveland. Was there for 6 years, and by God's blessing, I believe, my really leader and biggest influence as far as a coach goes at the high school level was a guy named Mike Elder, who's still the head coach at Avon, and it was when I got hired there. And he's a Mount Union grad as well. And so it was cool to have that, shared camaraderie. We didn't play together or coach together or anything like that. But again, God works in magical ways and brings people together and crosses paths for a reason. And I honestly believe that was for a great reason. And in my opinion, he's the best high school coach in the state of Ohio, in my opinion, for what he does with what he has and what he's built. And so a lot of our program, exemplifies that and models it in a lot of ways, but we're different at the same point. We have different people and different kids. And so great experience. And then, the opportunity to come home, another huge blessing and opportunity. And, the funny thing about it, rewinding, back to that time, my wife and I had just bought a house. She had just gotten pregnant, and we had a dog, and then the opening at my alma mater happens, and we had just talked how that was the halfway point for both of our families. Her family's from the Canton area, and my family, most of them were from the Bloomville Tiffin area, and so where we were was kind of the halfway point for all of us. Was let's settle here. It's really nice. We love it. It's a growing community. Athletically it was awesome. We had a great deal of success. I loved teaching there. And she was meeting friends and stuff too. I was like, hey, let's settle roots for a little bit. And then this opening happened, and we, with her blessing, really, she said, I have a feeling your alma mater just doesn't open, every other year.
Right.
Yeah.
And I said, no, it doesn't. And she goes, well, you have to apply. And so, for whatever reason, some people thought I was up to the gig way back when, and gave me the opportunity, and it's been a whirlwind ever since.
It really has. We're thankful they gave you that opportunity, Coach, because it's been a fun ride here with you. Now, you've had some good players graduate last year, and you've had a lot of good groups at Columbian, but this is probably one of the strongest senior classes that I've seen since I've been covering football with Tiffin Columbian. Now, talk about this group and just how much they mean to the Tornado program.
Yeah. Well, I say this and I mean this. I really, really mean this. We won't know if this is the most successful group until 10 years from now, 15 years from now, when they come back as husbands and leaders and community leaders and hopefully taxpayers and, doing the right thing, behind the scenes and not just what they left their mark necessarily in the program in their 4 years, but, collectively and talent-wise and, where they are right now, it's a great group from an athletic standpoint, from a leadership group, from a work standpoint, and they've been that way for a long time. I was hired as a dean of students after my first year of teaching back here at the middle school level, and these guys came in as 6th graders. And so I had intramurals every day with this group in the gymnasium or out in the playground. And I'm not going to lie, there was some that gave me some headaches, but there was some that could throw and catch and run. So it was a good balance, and I've known a great deal of them for a long, long time, and it's been awesome to see them grow and mature. And so we'll find out how successful, quote unquote, they are as husbands and professionals and everything later to leave their mark. But obviously, we want to make this last year as memorable as possible too on the field.
You got a lot of these seniors. I mean, these seniors were freshmen when you made that trip to the state semifinals in 2020. And talk about the growth and maturation of a lot of these kids since that point. I mean, some of them weren't even playing that. Obviously, a lot of them weren't playing that year because they were freshmen. But just talk about the growth and maturation of this class to this point and how much they've been through to get to here.
A lot of work. Yeah. A lot of work, and a lot of people pouring into them to get them to this point, and they would reiterate that. We were blessed to have a couple of them out in the field and contributing a little bit, but most were kind of up in the stands or watching online or at a distance a little bit necessarily. So I asked like one of them the other day, like, what do you, we got Chardon next week. What do you remember about Chardon back in 2020? He just said cold.
It was cold that night, man.
I was like, oh yeah, and he's like, yeah, I just remember it was cold. And I'm like, well, I don't remember that exactly, but I guess I was a little bit more busy and up and down and stuff. So
right,
a great deal amount of work, and we're thankful for that, obviously.
So let's talk about last week a little bit. I don't want to talk too much about it because you got a lot in front of you, but we got to go at least a little bit backwards. Let's talk about week one. So 41-14, win over Fremont Ross. That's a big-time win for this program. What was the mindset or the mantra going into that game?
Really just take care. There's no revenge. I never said that word. I don't know if any of our coaches ever said that word or anything like that because, again, last year's team, the year previous, all that is history, and it didn't have any effect on it and stuff. And we had, they'd gotten the better of us the last 2 years, and we just needed to prepare and put together a big game plan. And they returned some players, and we're breaking in a lot of new starters in a lot of ways too. And so it was tough to scout and kind of prepare. So it was kind of like, okay, this is what they're showing on film from that and what their kids can do, based on film. What else could they do? And then you got to prepare for that. And so the kids did a great job from the mental standpoint and preparation and physical part, and, dealt with some adversity early, which is, as a head coach, now that I know the result, is kind of awesome. That I like, on the road, dealing with adversity in a lot of ways, and came out and righted the ship and played really well in a lot of ways is a good sign.
Yeah,
that seemed to be that word adversity seemed to be. I heard that a lot last Friday. I believe I heard the offensive coordinator talk about it as soon as you guys got down that first touchdown. He came to me and said nothing like a little adversity to start the game out. So, and I heard Damian talk about it in the post game show. So that seems to be adversity. You're preaching that a lot this year. It seems.
Yeah, it's every year. I'll tell a story clear back. Jack Corpor's older brother, his senior year, maybe it was his junior, I think it was his senior year, broke his arm. And our mantra has always been toughness and adversity, and not when it happens, but, it's going to happen. It's not when or if it's going to. And he's sitting there with a broken arm, and it's clearly broken, and he looks at me, he's like, just a little adversity, coach. And like that is always the mantra, because you will never play a game where there's not resistance. There's always going to be some. At some point, even if you're up a huge amount, when you got your backups in there probably is going to be, resistance. And there's definitely with our schedule, because I don't have a whole lot of cupcakes on there. So
they didn't throw any layups to start the season either.
No,
so.
Resistance is going to happen. Expect it, and don't flinch when it does. So our guys obviously did a good job of that Friday night.
Yeah. So you say that there was no revenge factor. There was nothing obviously going into that game, but was there maybe any kind of emphasis on this game a little bit? Just in the fact that, they'd taken the last two matchups. This is kind of a storied rivalry between you guys. So maybe was there a little bit, not necessarily from the coaches, but from the players? Did you feel it from the players that they wanted this one a little bit more?
Or kind of got that monkey off their back?
Probably, a little bit, just because, 2 straight years and getting that bad taste and wanting to start out 1-0. And it was the most important game of the year because it was the next game. You know what I mean? And so the countdown clock, that's the one that has the longest countdown to it, because when the season ends and it starts again and you're 230-odd days out from the next game, it's on there for a long time. And all the other ones are going to have, 6 days from now. So, I wouldn't say it was bigger than any of the others, and we talked about the last 2 years. When you open up with a loss, you got to flip the page and move on really quick, because after that it really doesn't matter. It can leave an effect in if you let it, both good and bad, but you got to turn the page quickly. And so, we'll celebrate the heck out of it for 18 or so hours, enjoy it, because winning ain't easy. And we got to cherish that, and I never want to not celebrate a win and get ho-hum and angry about it by any means. So we enjoyed the heck out of it, but we know we also got to flip the page really quickly.
That's right.
That 18 hours is over.
That's right.
Over. Yeah, it's been over.
So let me set the stage here. Down 14-6, your quarterback takes a hit, ball comes out, 4th and 21, next play, you had to punt the ball. It's the first quarter. It's the second quarter, you got about 10 minutes left before halftime. You're down by 8, and you got to give the ball back to the other team. What do you say to your team on the sideline there? Because it seemed like that was the turning point. That was the point when they said, all right, we're done messing around. We're done playing around. We're just going to put our foot to the pedal.
I mean, to be honest, I probably said punt and cover, punt to pin. Like that's what was screaming.
You want to know exact words? That's what it was.
Punt to pin. Let's go. Pin them. That's, I mean, because it's the most important thing. Right then, the most important thing is punt to pin. Like punt to pin, meaning you're trying to get them inside the 20 or 10, depending on where you are. And we take that really seriously because that can be a big momentum get back. You know, yeah, you got to punt, you got to give it back to them. But if you can make them uncomfortable in their own end, you know, that's a momentum get back right there. And so punt and cover, get it back, and did a decent punt, covered it with zero return yards. And then next one is like this play right here, defense. This play right here, come on, let's go, get it back. I think we gave up a couple plays, maybe a first down or two. I think came up with a pick at midfield, and that was a big momentum get right there.
Yeah, big time. Eric, you had a question about that game, didn't you? I thought you had one in there.
Yeah, that's I don't remember what I had. I think we might have covered what I was gonna ask.
Just wanted to make sure I gave you the opportunity to ask any questions you might have.
I did send you a comment question there, so you can take a look at that if you'd like.
So let's see here. We had a comment from yes. Okay, so this is something we definitely want to ask. So the sweet throwback jerseys, people are hearkening to the 90s style. Where did the uniform inspire come from? Because I love the all whites. That's my personal favorite uniform of any team in any sport. The all whites just pop for me. And when I showed up for picture day, I'm like, wow, those are just so clean.
Mm-hmm. They should be. They're brand stinking new.
Well, yeah,
so,
obviously.
There's that. And I hope the laundry guy takes his job seriously this next couple of days. But, yeah, you know, the white jersey. First off, I met with a handful of seniors, opened it up to all of them. Met with them. We were up for new uniform rotation. We have a rotation in all of our athletic teams, and kind of didn't give them a budget, but they didn't get real crazy. You know, said, hey, you guys can design them. This is how you would design them. Gave them the access to the Nike build the jerseys and stuff like that. Okay. And I had a couple ideas too that I kind of fed them, and so we had options, and then they kind of voted on ones for home, for away, and those are kind of the ones they picked. They really liked the clean. You know, I don't like them personally. You know, I got a couple buddies that really do like them, but it really is our away jerseys are exactly like Notre Dame's, except the TC instead of the ND.
That's why Greggy liked it. Greggy was all about it.
No, I don't think they have white pants. I don't think they go white on white. They go white on gold, I think. And then our home jerseys, when we break those out this week, they're kind of modeled after Akron's
I was
home jerseys.
just about to say, when we did the commercial shoot with Braden and Bryce, I was like, man, those look just like Akron's. He's like, almost identical.
Yeah. I think they're literally there's not gold around the band on the sleeve, but everything else is almost the same. So they're clean.
Yeah.
They're nice.
They are very nice.
And, yeah.
A little bit of a throwback look. I like it.
Look good, feel good, hopefully play above average. That's always the goal.
So I got to talk one more question about last week, then let's move on and talk about Chardon. You started to pull away in the second quarter. You get up by 2 scores going into the locker room. Was there anything in the back of your head that said keep your foot on the pedal? I mean, considering the last time you guys were in Fremont, you had a second-half lead, 16 points in the fourth quarter, and it just evaporated like that. Was there anything maybe in the back of your head that said, no, we just got to keep going. We just got to keep driving down the field, keep putting points on the board?
Pedal to the
Yeah.
metal.
I mean, there was some words that were muttered, yelled, encouraged at halftime just about, the urgency being all the way up. No let down, no let go. You know, we talk about a tap-out button, you know, when you're in a fight or whatever, and even in a game, you can literally just see the heads hang when you have lost all hope and momentum. And, you know, when you increase that lead, you can increase those heads and those guys who literally just kind of tap out.
Yep.
And so that was the goal. You know, we're there close. You know, by any means, it was not there, but it was up to them to obviously get as many of them to tap out as possible and give up. And I thought we did a pretty good job in the second half of doing that.
I think so too, Coach. All right, so let's talk Chardon. This is, I mean, probably one of the biggest regular season matchups that I've seen at Frost County Stadium since I've been covering football here in Tiffin and Seneca County. Last time you guys met, 2020, was the state semifinal. We won't talk about that. It's long in the past.
We got smoked. If you weren't there, we got smoked.
We were there. We were there. We remember. I remember how cold it was, too. Greggy remembers how cold it was. Greggy came up and thawed out at halftime during and he was like, my bones are stiff.
I really don't. This is crazy. I really don't remember being cold. I swear to you.
It was
I remember
freezing.
a whole lot of other things that were uncomfortable. Yeah. But I don't remember being really cold. They were really good then, like really, really good. I think they, we have the running clock in football with you're up 30 in the second half. They running clocked every opponent except for in the state finals against DeSales.
Man.
Yeah.
So they were quite the team.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I mean, they look like they're got a pretty potent lineup as well this year. 1-0 coming off a 35-0 win over West Geauga. What's the mindset going into this week?
Do the little things. Make the most important thing. Discipline. Do your job, and embrace your role. And they do things differently on offense and defense in a lot of ways than most teams, and so preparation's been key. The first couple days here, it's dang near impossible to symbolize and give a great look exactly at the speed and physicality that they're going to give you, obviously, because they're really good at doing it, and they've been doing it, talking to people. They've run the same offense from their biddy leagues all the way up for 40-some plus years, except for maybe a couple years blip in there and here and there. So these kids know what they're doing, and it shows. And so asking our kids to put together a scout team and do it, over a weekend of prep maybe or a day of prep is difficult, but our kids are up to the challenge, and they've done a great job already. But obviously we got a couple good days of preparation ahead of us still to try and get ready.
Yeah. So let's talk about this matchup. Talk about this process of putting this matchup together. What all went into this to make this happen? Because, this isn't something that you guys just decided to do last year. This is years in the making, right?
Sometimes. Yeah, sometimes. Not always, though, because you have league games that are scheduled out for years in advance, and then sometimes you have openings that last, almost into the summertime. You just struggle to find teams. For example, we have two openings still for next year in our schedule for week 3 and 4, I believe. So
there you go, folks. Anybody out there?
If anybody out there knows someone week 3 or 4 who would like to play us,
I bet Greg Shook's watching going, hey, Akron St. Vincent will take that matchup.
Yeah.
He's always trying to get Akron over here to play you guys.
I reached out to them a couple years ago. So long story short, these things happen organically, happen strategically. It's crazy, social media, Twitter. I post openings on Twitter. I post openings on all sorts of networks and stuff like that. And it's a compliment to our kids. And I tell all of our kids now, I say, hey, listen, blame the kids before you and blame your head coach, because they built a program. The kids previous, not me, but they've built a program up to where nobody in this area that's remotely your size that isn't a conference opponent doesn't want to play you.
That's right.
And that dwindling of funnel isn't really big anyways. When you look at our region and to be in Division III, there's not a ton of teams in that hour radius. There's some, and we try to play them, and some are just not interested for whatever reason, or interested those weeks because they're also have conflicts, and so that's why you get stuck going to Chardon in 2025, which is 2 hours away, and Bishop Watterson this year, which is 2 hours away in a couple weeks. So it is what it is.
Yeah, it is definitely what it is. Eric, you had a couple questions about this week.
Yeah, speaking of this week with Chardon, I know we talked earlier about how your seniors were only freshmen that back in 2020 when you guys played in the state semis. But is there anything that you can take going into that game that you can put towards this game that can maybe help going into this game that you can take from last 2020's game? You got different players mostly and all that, but and you said Chardon's got the same style of football. They play the same thing for the last 40 years. So, some of the game plan might be able to help with going into this game by having that experience in 2020.
Well, I'll tell you, the game plan's a little different from back then.
Well, yeah, the game plan as far as your players and all that.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like the same things you saw on film and, were interested in back in 2020, why were you interested in them, and can you reflect, and were they, not good because, I was just wrong on this, guy's assignment, and it was actually this necessarily, and so we didn't take advantage, or was that just player better than our player at that point? We still like it. So there's definitely some reflection in a lot of ways. And, without getting into the weeds too much, there's always experience. You hope it's from a good experience, but there's also experience from negative things too. So, there's a ton of learning. And one coach on my staff kind of thinks that I'm like, in love with my abusers or something like that sometimes. Or like I'm a glutton for punishment or something like that. But, I just like a challenge. And not that I'm a revenge person or anything like that, but I have a great deal of respect for Coach Hewitt. We've actually stayed in touch clear back from 2020 when we first met and first crossed paths. And because we're kind of, to be honest with you, in similar situations as far as not a whole lot of teams out near him want to play them, and not a whole lot of teams out near us want to play us. And we kind of talked about that for 2 years, and then we both have a common week open and have made it happen.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So from a team standpoint, talk about what kind of preparations go into a game like this. Do you just treat this like any other game, or are you guys pulling out all the stops in this week too, going for this win? Because obviously you got to keep some of the stuff under wraps for league play. You're trying to save a little bit of this, but this is a big game.
It's a big game, absolutely. And there's been if you have the opportunity, and I'm not saying I did or do, to get tape on someone from previous years and have a great deal amount of time to prepare for that, then you do so. And so if that means you have games from previous years and have had 4.5 to 5 months to prepare for it, then you would. I'm not saying I did that. But if, you had that opportunity, you would put in that kind of work if you're a good football coach.
That's right. And, we happen to have a pretty good one here. So talk about this Hilltoppers team. This is a tough roster. I looked at this roster top to bottom. They got a sophomore on this team, 6'5", 275. Baggett, I believe is his last name. And this kid's already getting looks from Ohio State, Iowa, breaking bench press records and squat records all over the place. And he's just a sophomore. He's not the only one. There's a lot of these kids just spattered throughout this roster. Talk about this matchup. They had a 26-game win streak snapped last year. Their reign of back-to-back state championships came to an end. What do you think is the biggest reason for their sustained success?
I think they're tough, and I think they train that way. I think they play that way. I think they coach that way. I think they practice that way. They have, I think, a great off-season program that they maximize their talent and their DNA of their kids, and they have a good deal amount to choose from. They're from a tradition-rich program that's been doing things well for a long time. So it's a great mix. You have a community who gives a crap about athletics, that has dads and uncles and people who have kids coming up in the program that it was very similar back then, and so they take a great deal amount of pride in it. And not in a whole lot of places do the people just go with the coach and trust in the coach, and we're going to have the coaches back or the teachers back and things. Sometimes you have the helicopter parents or snowplow parents that want to come to the rescue and fix things. And I don't think they have a great deal of that. And I'm sure there's stuff. Every place has stuff, but I just talking to Coach Hewitt and what he's built. He loves where he's at, and he cherishes it and defends it in a great deal amount of energy and attitude.
It's one thing to win a state title, but back-to-back state titles, that's hardly ever been done before. And they were the first team in OHSAA history to go 16-0. When you break it down, it's been one of the most successful programs in the state under Mitch Hewitt. What do you think is the strength of this year's Hilltoppers team, and how do you guys plan on stopping them?
The strength, I think, they're similar in a lot of ways to their previous years and what they do schematically probably. I think they have really 3 dudes on offense they can hand the ball off to that are really threatening as far as breaking tackles and also speed-wise. 2 kids who are really fast in the perimeter, and they got a quarterback who can run it and throw it, and behind a really physical and big offensive line that's going to make for a great mix. And defensively, they're long, they're fast, they're physical, they fly around to the football, and they're really active. It's really hard to symbolize just how active they are on defense with their different looks and blitz packages and alignments and stuff. And so what is their strength? I think they're really similar to probably most of their teams and what they do, and that's the culture that they've built. And obviously having great players to execute it is probably the strength.
Yeah. All right, Coach. Well, I know we do have one final question, but before we get to that, I think Greggy sent me something here, maybe a comment from a listener here. says, can you ask Coach Lutz if the one-on-one time I spent tutoring in math has been a part of his success at being able to calculate how to beat his opponents? If so, can you send him a hat? Who do you think that's from?
I can take one guess, but I'll leave it up to you to maybe give that person the credit. But I'll take one. Well, don't give him any credit. Actually,
don't make his head too big.
Exactly. Don't give him any credit. No.
Do you think that's why though? That's
probably.
definitely the
absolutely.
biggest reason, right?
I would not be here, sitting here today, without that one-on-one tutoring that I received back then. Absolutely.
All right, Coach, we do have a question here from a devoted fan of Tiffin Columbian Athletics here. Macy Hall wants to come on and ask a question here. We'll go ahead and hand the mic over.
Love it.
That might be a little sweaty. So.
Here you go. Put this on.
What?
I'll help you in. So, this is my daughter, Macy.
Hi, Macy.
She's been coming to the game since last year. Loves coming down to the Columbian Stadium and running around with her friends watching the games. Mm-hmm. And her favorite player is Damian Brockington, naturally. Mm-hmm. And one day she was asking me after the game who the fastest player on the team was. Ooh. And I said, I would probably guess Damian. And she said, well, I want to race him.
Oh.
So she's been trying to track Damian down to race him, and she was going to ask you a question.
Do you think I can beat him?
How far would you like to race? Do you do cross country or anything like that? 'Cause he's not much of a distance kid, so if it was to like a mile or 2 mile, you might have a shot.
Think you can run a mile?
Probably.
I'll run with you. Because I'd love to beat Damian in a race.
Your guess as far as is he the fastest guy on our team? Yes. Yes, he is our fast. And we got some fast guys. And he is the fastest of fast. We actually are able to calculate guys miles per hour, and we track them every other Monday. You get your miles per hour tested, and he tested it the Monday before the Fremont-Ross game, and he was clocked at going 23.75 miles per hour. So in some zones, he was speeding. Yeah.
That is unreal.
It's fast.
Zone, he'd have been pulled over.
Yeah. His fast makes other people's fast not so fast.
Did he get faster this year?
He did get faster because last year when we clocked him, he ran low 23s, high 22s. So he is getting faster every week. Hear that, opponents?
Yep.
He's getting faster.
So you shouldn't have waited to challenge him.
Yeah, you better get him now before he gets 25.
All right. Thank you, Macy.
Yep.
Thanks, Macy.
She's like, am I done now?
I'm going to go with that.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Macy. Appreciate that very much. Very well done. Coach, any final thoughts before I let you go here? I really appreciate your time once again for coming on the show with us, taking time out of your busy schedule to sit down with us and talk to the fans. Anything else you want to talk about?
Nope, just appreciate all the coverage, obviously all the support from everybody. Hope the stands are packed. If you can't come to the game, though, obviously tune in. So I hope it's a huge following online, but also at the game. We pack the place and welcome our visitors from Chardon.
Absolutely. All right, Eric, any final questions for Coach?
No, I think we about covered it.
I think so, too. All right, I want to give a huge shout-out and a thank you to the Wizard, Greg Kinn, for allowing us to be live and looking good here, and he keeps us looking good and keeps us locked in here. And thanks to Coach Lutz once again for coming on this week, and thanks to all of you for tuning in. If you've made it this far, folks, do us a favor. Share the video. Like, follow, subscribe. All that stuff's important, but sharing the video helps to extend our reach to a whole new audience. So please, just click that button twice. Thanks again. Once again, you've been watching the Coach's Corner live here at Benchwarmers Restaurant and Delivery on Heart of Ohio Sports. Have a good night.